In the beginning of the last decade, the charge of urban taxis for the first 2 kilometers was only $15. Nowadays, the charge has already been increased to over $20. Other than taxi fares, the prices of goods and services in our daily lives, like housing, food, utilities, and even the less common producer goods, have also been adjusted over time. This adjustment certainly affects our cost of living. When we were studying microeconomics, we focused on the equilibrium price of a specific good. Yet in macroeconomics, we'll need to broaden our perspective to consider the prices of all goods and services in an economy. That's what we call the general price level. A country produces thousands of goods a year. To measure the general price level of a country, we need an indicator to include the prices of all these goods and services. In macroeconomics, the general price level is a weighted average of prices of all goods and services in an economy. The two most commonly used indicators are Consumer Price Index and GDP deflator, which has been introduced before. Consumer Price Index, or CPI for short, measures more than just the general price level. CPI focuses on the price level of a bundle of consumer goods and services generally purchased by local households. It is thus an indicator of local residents' cost of living. When there are changes in the CPI, there are actually changes in residents' costs of living. Let's consider an example. Suppose the table below summarizes the consumption pattern of a typical household in country X. In 2016, this typical household bought 10 units of clothing, 100 units of food, and 150 units of transportation. The total cost of this consumption basket was $9,000. However, in 2017, when prices in general have increased, the household has to pay $12,450 for exactly the same consumption basket. We can then compute the Consumer Price Index using these pieces of information. Assuming that 2016 is the base year, by the calculation we can see that the CPI for the base year is always 100, and the CPI for 2017 increased to 138.3. Thus, the increase in price level throughout this period is 138.3 minus 100 divided by 100 times 100% equals 38.3%. Though we can use this method to compute the CPI of an economy, households within different expenditure ranges in fact may have different expenditure patterns. For example, usually money spent on food and housing takes up a larger part of the total expenditures of the households within the lower expenditure range. On the other hand, households with higher total expenditure usually spend a larger proportion of their spending on durable goods or other luxuries. Therefore, the Census and Statistics Department has taken these differences into consideration and compiled a few different CPIs accordingly.